This film is about first aid in motorsport. It's in two parts, covering basic and more advanced techniques. But even though it only lasts a few minutes, it could help you to save a life. It doesn't try to turn you into a medical expert, nor into a trained rescue marshal. It just tries to give you some of the basics of first aid, because think how you'd feel if you had to watch someone die simply because you lacked basic knowledge. And don't be put off if you're a bit squeamish. Any fear will go with the pressure of helping at an accident. To avoid needing first aid yourself, even before an event, remember to adopt a common sense approach, particularly when using tools. Protect your eyes when welding or machining. And don't be too casual about cuts. Wear protective gloves and keep tetanus and other injections up to date. And never work under a vehicle unless it's properly supported. To avoid back injury, get help if possible and always lift things properly. Knees bent, back straight, chin tucked in and looking forward. In effect, step into the lift rather than a straight lift. All obvious points, yet many people get injured every year by forgetting them. Think ahead. It's worth having a first aid kit with you and a fire extinguisher, and read how to use it before you come across a fire. Wear gloves to protect yourself from sharp edges, hot metal and infection. And if possible, wear something bright and reflective. Now let's suppose you come across an accident. If someone's clearly in control, such as a doctor or marshal, then offer to help, perhaps by assisting with crowd control, or going for further assistance, or simply by keeping out of the way. If nothing else, watch that people aren't smoking nearby. But what if you're first on the scene? Well, try not to panic. Spend a moment assessing the scene for dangers. Try to prioritize what needs doing and organize any assistance you have.
Can you hear me? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Take things slowly. Ensure your own safety, because if you too become a casualty, you won't be able to help anyone. While you're letting the dust settle, make a rapid assessment of the vehicle and crew. Is there an immediate danger from fire? Is the vehicle stable? Could it restart or be quickly moved to a place of safety? Can you see the crew moving?
Do you know anything about your driver?
Not a lot. I've only just met him this morning. It's our first rally together.
Okay, if you get yourself out, don't go wandering too far now.
Okay.
Control from post 3, over.
Control to post 3, pass your message, over.
If you're able to contact race or rally control by radio or phone, you may want to make a preliminary report, promising to update them when you know more.
Control to Bravo 5, acknowledged car 5 has hit a tree.
And you will update us as soon as possible. Out.
Use the crashed vehicle and any natural barriers for protection as you approach it, and keep checking for danger from other competitors. Avoid turning your back to oncoming traffic, but try to approach from the front to avoid casualties turning their heads to look at you, which could make a spinal injury worse. Make a rapid assessment. Is any casualty moving? Do they respond when you speak to them? If the car is too badly damaged or the crew appears too badly injured for it to be moved, turn off the car's electrics using the external isolator.
Can you hear me? Are you all right?
If it will help to stabilize the car, apply the handbrake or put it into gear. If you are alone, now is a good time to shout for help.
Help! Anybody! Help!
If there is anyone who can help you, decide what you want them to do and tell them. Get them to write down or repeat any message if you are sending them for help, and make sure you tell them to report back immediately they have completed the task. On a rally, you now have to protect the scene to warn following cars so that they too don't become part of the accident. Display the competitor's SOS board in the window of the vehicle so that it can be clearly seen by any following competitor. And then put out the car's warning triangle about 100 meters before the incident. Once you've protected yourself, any colleagues, the casualties, and any bystanders from danger, make a more detailed assessment of any casualties. Remember this sobering thought. If someone is unconscious with a blocked airway, they'll die within 3 minutes if you do nothing. 3 minutes. That's about how long the brain lasts without oxygen. And bear in mind that if you didn't see the accident, you may not know how long ago it happened. Check for any response from the casualty. Are they awake?
Can you hear me?
If not, do they react to your voice? Do they react to touch or mild pain? Squeeze the casualty's arm. Lightly pinch a finger. Are they unresponsive? Your first priority has to be anyone who is unresponsive or apparently unconscious.
I need to get out of this car. Get me out of this car, please.
Clearly, if someone is shouting or talking, then they are at least conscious and breathing, and ought to be able to let you know what, if anything, is wrong with them. On a circuit, if you have a casualty who is unresponsive or has a serious injury, summon medical help now using a radio, if you have one, or the appropriate signal to your post chief. The same goes for a rally, if you have a radio or telephone contact. Whether you are on a rally or a circuit, concentrate on anyone who is quiet and still, and follow what is known as the ABC of first aid. This is the protocol for assessing and maintaining a casualty's airway, breathing, and circulation. Ideas about the best way to resuscitate a casualty are continually evolving. Advice changes and may differ from country to country, and may also depend on whether you are on your own or not. So always follow local practice. Some basic steps don't change, however. So if you remember one thing from this film, this is it. Airway, breathing, and circulation. You've already carried out the first steps of the ABC protocol. You've checked for and minimized any danger, and you've assessed the responsiveness of any casualties. If you're on your own and have an unresponsive casualty, shout for help, even if you called for help earlier, before taking the next step in the ABC of saving lives. A stands for airway, and B stands for breathing. If the casualty is wearing a full-face helmet and the visor is down, you can't do much about A or B, so support the helmet to avoid excessive movement and open the visor. While you're about it, release the chin strap, which could be affecting the casualty's ability to breathe. In an emergency, cut the strap using a pair of scissors, making sure you place your fingers between the strap and the casualty's face. Remember, once you begin supporting someone's head, you must not stop until someone else takes over, so get into a comfortable position before you start. If the casualty's head is slumped on their chest, carefully lift and support their helmet so that their head is in what's called neutral alignment. That is the normal position your head is in when you are standing or sitting, looking straight forwards. Most blocked airways will be caused by the tongue falling backwards. There is a risk that a casualty's tongue will fall back and obstruct their airway, irrespective of whether they are sat up with their head in neutral alignment or on their back. You can open the casualty's airway by lifting their chin, obviously difficult if the casualty is still wearing a full-face helmet. If you have been on a resuscitation course, you may also have been taught to tilt the casualty's head back. However, one of the major concerns in high-speed impacts is that the casualty's cervical spine, the top part of the spine, can be damaged. Tilting the casualty's head back can cause more damage to the cervical spine, so use your judgment. Avoid tilting their head if at all possible, and support the head and neck to avoid uncontrolled movement. Remember, a casualty whose airway is blocked is not breathing and will die in 3 minutes. So opening the airway must take priority. Try to attend a training session where you will be taught the more advanced jaw thrust technique for opening the airway, shown in the second half of this video. An open airway is vital, so let's look at it again. Most blocked airways will be caused by the tongue. The blockage can be removed by a chin lift while controlling the spine. Now let's look at the B for breathing. Making sure you keep the airway open, check if the casualty is breathing by looking to see if the chest is rising and falling, by listening for the sound of breathing with your ear close to the casualty's mouth, and by feeling for breath on your face. You should check breathing for no more than 10 seconds. C is for circulation and checking whether the heart is beating. Follow your local first aid protocol. Some protocols no longer include a circulation check for an unconscious casualty. Others may involve physically checking for a pulse, or possibly checking for breathing, the casualty's colour, and capillary refill. That's how quickly the blood vessels under the nails refill after being pressed. Don't remove the casualty from the car unless absolutely necessary for their safety. If a casualty in a car is unconscious but is breathing, support them in a normal position until more help arrives. Keep checking the casualty's breathing and take appropriate action if it stops. If the unconscious casualty is already out of the car, then leave them on their back unless there is a danger of choking. Then put them in what is known as the recovery position, taking special care to avoid making any spinal injury worse. Ensure the casualty's nose, chin, breastbone and feet remain aligned as you turn them on their side. Provide support for their head and prevent uncontrolled movement of the cervical spine. If you have enough people, log roll the casualty.
That's lovely, that's lovely.
Once the casualty is in the recovery position, check they have an open airway and will not choke if they're sick.
You at the bottom can go and get some help.
If the casualty has a clear airway and is not breathing, follow local practice about summoning assistance. In some cases, if you are alone and without radio or telephone communications, this may mean leaving the casualty immediately and commencing resuscitation when you return. Whether you begin with chest compressions or by breathing for the casualty will depend on local practice. The number of compressions to breaths may also vary. However, the basic method of compressing the chest and breathing for the casualty remain the same. To compress the casualty's chest, place the heel of your hand in the center of the chest. Then place your other hand on top and interlock the fingers. Keeping your arms locked, knees a shoulder width apart and shoulders over the casualty, press down 4 to 5 centimeters. To breathe for the casualty, pinch their nose, take a deep breath, seal your lips around theirs, and blow steadily into their mouth for about 1 second, watching for the chest to rise. Let the chest fall completely before blowing steadily into their mouth a second time before restarting the compressions. If you are uneasy about mouth-to-mouth contact, a simple face mask carried in your first aid kit will help. Repeat this cycle of compressions, breaths and exhalations according to local practice. Usually a cycle of 30 compressions followed by 2 breaths. Counting aloud will help you maintain the rate. Continue at a rate of 100 compressions a minute until more experienced help arrives. Take any opportunity of practicing the correct rate of compressions before facing the real situation.
26, 27.